Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to be ranking all 34 card evolution. This will be going up to Evo Skeleton Barrel, which is the most recent Evo in the game. Currently I'm sitting around top 3,000 in the world right now, so I figured I'd just give a little bit of insight and some of my opinion on the evolutions in the game right now. Alright, getting started right now. At number 34 we have the Evo Drill. It's pretty much been the worst evolution in the game for quite a while now. There's not really a real reason to run the Evo drill instead of the regular drill. Most of the time it gets about the same value, sometimes even less than the regular drill. So there's pretty much no reason to run it right now. I really do hope it gets a buff soon. It is a pretty fun card. Right. Coming in at number 33, I have the Evo Bomber. Ever since it got nerfed a couple of months ago, it really hasn't been all that useful. Doesn't get a whole lot of value as it pretty much is just a free King Tower activation for your opponent, which makes it pretty hard to play, and it's not really used in any decks right now. Next up at number 32 is the Evo Wizard, and Supercell is actually giving everyone the Evo Wizard for free this week. So you might see it a lot more, but it's really not that good. It's one of the worst evolutions in the game. It's not really used in any decks. And the regular wizard is pretty bad too, so you almost pretty much never see it. At 31 I have Evo Electro Dragon. This card is actually pretty polarizing. If you are a beatdown player, this card might be the most annoying evolution to go against, but against most cycle decks it really isn't all that good. It's pretty much just like a regular Electro Dragon. It doesn't get as much value, so for that reason it is going to be pretty low down on the list. In terms of card design, this is not one of my favorite cards, just because, like I said, how polarizing it is. It really is pretty difficult to balance. Alright, that's going to round out my bottom 4 evolutions. Pretty much Evo E-Drag is pretty much the only one that sees just a little bit of use. It's the only one that could get a good amount of value. But other than that, all 4 of these evolutions are pretty bad and don't see much play or get any real value. Starting off the top 30, I have Evo Lumberjack. And this card at a high rank is pretty easy to defend, but I know in mid-ladder this card can be really, really good, or some players might not know how exactly to play against it. But for me personally, I'm putting it at 30. I just don't think it gets a whole lot of value ever since the nerf to where it became a 2 evolution cycle. It just really hasn't been that good. So yeah, I'm gonna have it start off our top 30. Alright, next at 29 is Evo Skeletons. And this card can be pretty good when used correctly, but in terms of evolutions, I just think a lot of evolutions ahead of the skeletons in this list are just a lot stronger and a lot better and get more value. You don't see a whole lot of evolution skeletons right now in the meta just because there's a lot of evolutions that are better and gonna help out your deck a lot more than those skeletons can. They're just a very slightly below average evolution. Number 28 is going to be the Evo Barbs. This card has gotten a little bit better over time, and it is used in a couple of decks, like Lava Hound and a couple of bridge spam, a little bit of Elixir Pump bridge spam decks. But other than that, it's not used a whole lot. It is still pretty weak compared to most evolutions, so for that reason I'm going to put it at number 28. Number 27 is going to be Evo P.E.K.K.A. This card was a pretty hard card to rank because of the Evo P.E.K.K.A. Evo Gob Giant deck going around. That is actually pretty strong in the meta right now. But by itself, Evo P.E.K.K.A. isn't as good as some of the other evolutions ahead of it on the list. So for that reason, I'm going to be putting it pretty low at 27. When you look at decks like traditional P.E.K.K.A. bridge spam, Evo P.E.K.K.A. just really isn't as strong as an evolution as a lot of the other evolutions. Alright, number 26 is going to be a card that I know a lot of mid-ladder players are going to hate. It is Evo Mega Knight. And while this card is definitely a mid-ladder and lower rank menace, I personally don't have too much of an issue defending against it. If you know how to play against it, it's usually a pretty easy King Tower activation, or at least kiting it around the map and defending it. So I don't have too much of an issue compared to some of the other Evos I'm putting on this list, so I'm going to put it at 26. Don't get too mad at me in the comments. it's still a solid card. My card rankings 30 to 26 I think are all pretty interchangeable depending on your preference. These cards have niches in the meta. They're alright cards. If you play them well enough, they can be good. So that's the reason I have them where they are. Starting off the top 25, I have Evo Hunter, and I think I have this card a little bit lower than most people would. Evo Hunter is pretty much only seen in Royal Giant, and it does synergize really well, but I don't believe Royal Giant is in the greatest spot in the meta right now. So for that reason, I'm going to have it pretty low at 25, but it is a good card overall. Very good for defense, you just don't really see it in the meta right now. At 24, I have Evo Gob Giant. It's a pretty hard card to rank just like the Evo P.E.K.K.A, because on its own, it really isn't the strongest evolution, but it does synergize so well with the Evo P.E.K.K.A and the Goblin Machine, and that's what makes that deck so strong in the meta right now. So for that reason, it was pretty hard to put Evo Gob Giant this low, but it just really isn't that good on its own, and it really isn't used in any other decks. There's very little Evo Gob Giant and Sparky running around the meta. It's pretty much just Evo Gob and Evo P.E.K.K.A. So for that reason, I'm going to have it a little bit low at 24. This tier is pretty small, having just Evo Hunter and Evo Gob Giant. These cards were both a little bit hard to rank because they're very niche in the meta right now, and the decks that they are in, they work pretty well, but on their own, they're not doing too great, so for that reason, I'm having them in this little mini tier of their own. I think these cards could be stronger, but they're also not weak. At 23, I have Evo Battle Ram, and this card is just a great solid card for bridge spam decks. It's not really used anywhere else, but in bridge spam, it is really good. It can get some good value if you use it right. It's just a pretty solid card overall. Not too good, not too weak. So I think 23 is the perfect spot for it. At 22, I have Evo Musketeer, and this card has such a high skill ceiling. It is used in some pretty high skill decks, like 2.9 Balloon Miner. That deck can be really skillful when you play it at a very high level. It's not used in a whole lot of decks, because Musketeer isn't in a great spot this meta. So you don't see a whole lot of Evo Musketeer, but in the decks it works well in, it is a very strong card, and you can use it to outplay your opponent really, really well if you know what you're doing. So for that reason, I'm having it at 22. At 21, I have Evo Goblin Cage. In the right matchup, this card can get so much value. I don't have a whole lot to say about it, except for it's just a really good, solid card. In some matchups, it works really well. In some, it's just alright, but it's a very good card, and it's definitely worth running in a deck if you don't have very many alternative options to run. Kicking off the top 20, I have Ice Spirit. And a couple of months ago, this card was probably a top 5 evolution, but ever since the nerfs to regular Ice Spirit and Evo Ice Spirit losing some of its freeze damage, and then the regular Ice Spirit losing some of its freeze duration, I think it's really dropped in the rankings. I think E-Spirit, I've seen a lot more in the meta, a lot of more people are running E-Spirit instead of Ice Spirit, and then using an evolution on a different card. So for that reason, I'm going to have it all the way down at 20. I think those nerfs really brought its ranking down. So yeah, I'm going to have it starting our top 20. Next up at 19, I have Evo Royal Giant. And I don't think it's the greatest Evo Royal Giant deck. The Monk got a nerf. And that was really a card that was keeping Royal Giant alive, as that one Royal Giant deck with the Monk in it was so strong in the meta. So I think ever since then, Royal Giant's cooled off just a little bit, and I think with that, Evo Royal Giant has dropped down a little bit in the rankings. I think it's still a really good card overall, it's just not really Evo Giant's meta. So for that reason, I'm going to have it, I think, probably a little bit lower than most people would, at 19. Now at 18, I have Evo Firecracker, and this card just terrorizes mid-ladder players. They don't know how to predict it, they don't know how to defend against it. So this card is definitely very strong in lower ranks or mid-ladder. It's definitely a great card to evolve in your deck. However, higher up, it is a little bit more tricky to play, and it can be used for great outplays, but it just isn't as strong as some of the other evolutions on this list, so I'm gonna have it at 18. This tier is a little bit weird because all of these Evos are really strong Evos. It just might not be their meta, or they've gotten a couple of balance changes that have knocked them down a little bit in the rankings. But you can't go wrong with running any of these evolutions. They're all really strong evolutions, and if you play them correctly, they can still get a ton of value. At 17, I have Evo Zap. This is a card I wanted to put higher, but after going through my list here, I just couldn't justify putting it above some of the cards I have a little bit higher up on the list. It's such a great spell in the meta. I have been seeing a lot more of it compared to a couple of other spells. This might be because of the log nerf, but overall, it's just a great card to use. Can't go wrong with using it in your deck. It definitely has some nice niches, like in Lava Hound, and a couple of minor balloon decks that really rely on having the opponent retarget onto a miner or an ice golem or whatever card they have tanking in front of it. So overall, it's a great card. Can't go wrong with it. Coming in at number 16, I have Evo Barrel. I am pretty biased as a log bait player. It did just recently get nerfed, what I thought was a pretty big nerf. I understand why they nerfed it. Evo Barrel was very strong in the meta. They cut down the decoy's damage by 26%. I definitely feel the difference when I'm playing this card. Overall, it's definitely a very good card. It's a very high skill ceiling card. If you play it correctly, you can still overwhelm your opponent. You can still completely destroy half of their tower. It's an amazing card overall. I do have it a little bit lower than I probably would have had it last month, but I think 16 is a very solid spot for it. It could definitely be a little bit higher depending on who you're asking, but for me, I'm pretty happy with where it is. Next up, at 15, I have the Evo Knight. This card is just so solid, so strong. You can pretty much use it in such a variety of decks. It has so many good uses. It gets great value. What I see it in the most in is that Witch Graveyard deck going around that has the Evo Knight. That deck is very, very strong. I think Evo Knight pairs perfectly with Graveyard, making it so hard for your opponent to deal with. Overall, Evo Knight just sees a lot of play in the meta. It's a very solid card. I think it could definitely be a lot higher than it is, but I'm going to put it at 15. At 14, I have Evo Mortar, and I think a lot of people would have this card a lot lower. I do personally think Evo Mortar is a very, very good evolution. I see a lot of Mortar bait decks going around with Cannoneer. I think it just has a really good spot in the meta. And so I'm going to put it at 14. Might be a little bit high, but I think that's a solid spot for Evo Mortar. It can really just get so much value. It's such a quick evolution. Yeah. At 13, I have Evo Royal Recruits, and I absolutely despise this card. I hate playing against it. It is such a strong card. The regular recruits aren't really that strong in the meta right now, but Evo recruits are really, really strong. They're really tough to deal with. You have to play it very, very carefully, or else it really can overrun both of your towers, really. It puts on so much pressure, it blocks up the lanes so well. It's just such a hard card to deal with, so for that reason, I'm going to have it at top 13. I think it could be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. So for that reason, I think 13 is right in the middle, right in the sweet spot where it should be. At 12, I have Evo Tesla, and this card just a couple of months ago was not a very good evolution, but recently it is becoming such a strong evolution. Expo's making a comeback. I see Evo Tesla in a lot more cycle decks. As a pretty strong competitor to Cannon, I do have Evo Cannon ranked higher than it, but I do believe Evo Tesla is a very strong alternative option, and it works well in a lot of different decks. It's very strong overall, and it's going to keep climbing the rankings each month. I think it will be higher the next few months. Now I have the newest evolution, which will be Evo Skeleton Barrel at number 11. And I think this one is going to have a pretty big split in the community. I know a lot of people really think this is a top 5 evolution. I personally don't have it that high. I think it is a really good evolution. If you play it correctly, you can put a lot of pressure, especially if you're using it in a mortar bait deck or with Wall Breaker, Miner, Skeleton King. Such a solid card overall. It puts on so much pressure to your opponent. It makes your opponent have to use a lot of elixir to defend if they don't have a proper counter in cycle. So overall, I have it at 11. I think it could be a lot higher. I just have to wait to see. I haven't had too much of an issue dealing with it in the meta. So for that reason, I'm going to have it just outside the top 10 at 11. Now we're finally at the top 10. So at number 10, I have Evo Executioner. I think this card is just super strong. Maybe not in the greatest spot in the meta, but on its own, it's a great card. It fits into a couple of niche decks, like the Ram Rider Bridge Fam deck, or the Hog Rocket Executioner Val Tornado deck. I think those are all really strong options. I think depending on the cards in the meta, if it was a better meta, Evo Executioner would be even higher than what it is now. So for that reason, I think 10 is a pretty safe spot. It's just such a strong card. You can never go wrong with using it. If you play it correctly, especially with the Tornado, you get so much damage, so much value. It's just so great on defense too. Inside the top 10, at number 9, I will be having Evo Archers. I think I have this card a little bit higher than most people would. I think it's just so strong in a lot of expo that I've seen going around. I've seen it in a couple of Elixir Golem decks and a couple of other beatdown decks that have been pretty strong. I think while beatdown isn't the strongest archetype in the meta right now, Evo Archers can be really tricky to deal with, especially when you split them. They apply so much pressure. They're pretty hard to counter if you don't have the proper counters in cycle, and they can end up costing a lot of elixir to defend, or just having you overspend trying to defend it. Now at 8, I have Evo Valkyrie. I think this card is just so strong on defense. It can really defend so many cards that it just has no business defending. I think this card is underutilized and really isn't used enough. I just love Evo Valkyrie. I think more people should use it. The defensive potential it has is just so great. It works so well in a lot of different decks. For that reason, I'm going to have it at number 8, just missing out on my top 7 tier. It's a really great card, just not one of the best, I believe. Before getting to the top 7, we're going to look at how the list is panning out so far. So I think all the cards in the newest tier I've added are just so good on their own, so good in the meta. For that reason, they're some of the best evolutions. They're not top 7 worthy, in my opinion, but they're just great evolutions, so strong, force out so many different options from your opponents, force out so much elixir. I think overall these are just really strong evolutions. If you use these in your decks, you'll be just fine. So yeah, these are all great options to use. Now I'm going to be starting my top 7. All of these evolutions are some of the strongest evolutions in the game. I think a couple or most of these could use a couple of nerfs or tweaks to them. So let's get started with number 7, which is going to be Evo Cannon. Defensively, this card just gets so much value. It's pretty much been a top 5 evolution for the last couple of months. I am having it all the way down at 7, which is still really amazing, but a little bit lower than it probably has been the last couple of months, just because Evo Tesla has been a really strong alternative option to use to Evo Cannon. So Evo Cannon isn't by far the greatest building in the meta right now because of all the use Evo Tesla's getting, and because of the nerf it got a couple of months ago to its airstrike radiuses, which I think brought it down just a little bit, but overall, it's a great card. Has so many great defensive purposes. You can even use it on offense. You can't go wrong using it. Just outside the top 5, I have Evo Bats at number 6. With all the minor poison decks going around, Evo Bats are just a staple in so many different control decks. I think Miner is really strong in the meta. It's probably a top 3 archetype in the meta right now. So for that reason, Bats are just so good. Their healing ability makes them so tricky to deal with. Unless your opponent has a pretty solid counter to it, they just get pretty much endless value. They can take a whole tower by themselves, depending on how well your opponent defends it. So for that reason, I'm gonna have it at number 6. Just a really, really strong card. Finally, at the top 5. Okay, so for number 5, I have Evo Dark Goblin. And this is a card that has actually been one of the worst evolutions for the last couple of months. But as of the recent last couple of seasons, Evo Dark Goblin has just sprung into the meta in all these hyper bait decks, especially with the most notably I'd say is the Boss Bandit hyper bait deck, which had the Boss Bandit, the 2 spirits, Evo Dark Goblin. You're just cycling as fast as possible. Your opponent's pretty much taking negative elixir trades every time they try and defend something. It was just such a strong deck. I think Evo Dark Goblin is just become such a staple in the meta and used in so many different log bait decks and just pretty much used everywhere now. So I'm going to have it starting off our top 5. A little deeper into our top 5, I have number 4, Evo Inferno Dragon. And Evo Inferno Dragon is just such a tough card to deal with. The fact that it can just hold its charge for up to 8 seconds is pretty unbelievable, to be honest. I think this card could definitely use a nerf. I see it in a lot of different decks right now, and if your deck doesn't have a whole lot of counters to it, Evo Inferno Dragon can definitely be the difference in the game and just make it so hard to defend. It just gets so much value on defense and then it carries it into offense. For that reason, I'm going to have it at number 4. In the top 3 now, I will have Evo Snowball at number 3. Evo Snowball pairs so good with Goblin Drill. And pretty much every Goblin Drill runs Evo Snowball now, just because of how good it synergizes. It's pretty much guaranteed damage when you throw down Evo Snowball. It's pretty much impossible for your opponent to defend that, so you're getting guaranteed damage of a couple Goblin Stabs, which really can make or break the game. It's just become such a staple in the meta right now. I think for that reason, it is a top 3 evolution. Due to all the hyper bait, the log bait, and the minor control going on in this season, I do have Evo Wall Breakers at number 2. Just such a strong card. It's always forcing out negative elixir trades. It's always forcing your opponent to play buildings. It's just so strong in all those different archetypes that I mentioned. It gets a lot of damage on the towers. It's just been such a strong, such a solid evolution that I think it's very deserving of the number 2 spot. Okay, now we're finally at number 1. In this evolution has been so strong ever since its release. It's getting nerf after nerf, and it just still pretty much stays the same. It is going to be the Evo Witch at number 1. I think overall, this card is amazing. It works so well, especially with the new evolution Skeleton Girl that did come out, but you mostly see it in graveyard decks, and Evo Witch graveyard decks. It feels like the Evo Witch can just never die. It feels pretty much unstoppable. If you know me, I hate graveyard decks. I hate facing it high up on ladder. It's just such a hard matchup. There's a lot of RNG to it. So it's definitely a deck I really struggle with, and I definitely struggle against the Evil Witch. It just really feels like it never dies, no matter how you defend it. So I do have it at number 1. It keeps getting nerfs. I don't think it's enough. I do think it deserves another nerf this season. We'll see. Alright, and now here is my complete list of all the top 34 evolutions. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe. Let me know down below if you want to hear a full ranking of every single card in the game. It would definitely be a long video, but yeah, if a couple of you guys want to see it, I would love to do one. Thank you so much for watching.